2328. When I was a junior in college, the fraternities had their annual scavenger hunt contest. One of the items they needed was the biggest bra on campus. Two groups of guys from different frats knocked on my door. Men can be so hurtful.
2334. I always avoid having my photo taken. You never know when a photo might come back and bite you.
2349. I want to touch a pregnant woman's belly. Not in a creepy weird sort of way, it's just that I have never touched one before and I want to know what it's like.
2356. When I was a kid, I would throw pennies onto the sidewalk and then hide in a strategic location hoping that when the young woman bent down to pick them up, I could see up her skirt or down her blouse. But mostly, no one stopped to pick up the pennies except old ladies. That made me sad, so I stopped.
2357. I apologize to my wife for things I never did. It's just easier.
2384. There was this guy I dated for a year. He was sort of this magical presence. There was something entrancing about him. And even though we both moved on to other relationships, I always had a thing in my head for him. So one night out of the blue, I called him up and said only, "My apartment door will be unlocked for the next hour. When you come in, don't say a word." Then I hung up. I didn't even tell him who I was. I figured if it was meant to be, he would figure it out. About 45 minutes later, I was laying on my bed naked when I heard the apartment door open. Magical. We never spoke a single word. And I have never spoken with him since. Although now that I'm writing this, makes me want to give him another call. Maybe this time, I won't even say as much. Maybe I'll just whisper. Again. Or maybe I'll say nothing at all. I'll just breathe into the phone and then hang up. Hey, if your phone rings late tonight.
2391. I had to be circumcised twice. This is not gloating. They just messed it up the first time.
2394. If you look very closely at the picture of the orchestra in my high school yearbook, I'm not wearing any pants.
2429. I lied. He never actually touched me. I was just mad.
2437. I Photoshop my pictures to make myself look better.
2442. I've never seen the movie Peter Pan. Sort of. When I was about 8, Peter Pan was going to be playing on TV. All the kids were talking about the big event. But the TV in my house wasn't working. While other kids had cool color TV sets, we had this big old black and white clunker with vacuum tubes that were always burning out. So it was hardly ever working. On the evening of the show, I was so hopeful when I turned the TV on. Too hopeful. The picture was black. My brothers and sisters groaned and wandered away. But to me, it wasn't a total bust because at least there was sound. I could hear the story. So I sat there for the next 2 hours, my face pressed up against the glass screen, listening. In my head, I had to imagine what Never Never Land looked like in Captain Hook and the crocodile who swallowed the alarm clock. So no, I've never seen the movie Peter Pan. And yet I feel that I've seen it in so much more vivid detail than anyone else.
2447. I'm in love with a man that I created in my head.
2472. I want to party like it's 1969.
2584. I never remember how to set the time on my digital clock. So whenever there's a power outage and the time gets all messed up, I just unplug it and then I get up at midnight and plug it back in again.
2791. I wish that aliens would kidnap me and experiment on me. At least then I'd have something interesting about me.
2897. When I was maybe 12, I used to play in this landfill near my house. I remember one day I was in there with my two best friends just messing around. We found this stash of dozens of old bottles. They looked like something from a college chemistry laboratory. Inside the bottles were all sorts of foul-smelling liquids, which of course was a gold mine to three boys. We set the bottles up in lines and used them for target practice with rocks. The ones we didn't break, we started goofing around with, splashing the smelly liquids onto each other. By 10 years later, both of my friends had died of lymphoma. I've always wondered if it was somehow related to that day. Me, I'm fine. But I'm worried.
2901. On the rare occasion I'm at a club, I love to watch people dance. Men, women, anybody. Oh, the way they slide and glide and twirl, whispering to the music. I could watch all night. But I feel like such a voyeur. I feel like it is something private and forbidden. It is their dance, not mine. Inevitably, after a few minutes, I feel so ashamed. It is like hearing your neighbors making love through the apartment wall as you lie there solo. The polite thing to do, the best thing to do, is pretend you don't hear it. So that's what I do at the dance club. I turn away and roll my wheelchair into another room.
2915. I once threw a drink in my date's face while sitting in a restaurant on his birthday. He didn't deserve it at all. I was baiting him. I kept asking him questions, hoping for a slightly negative answer just so I could act all huffy, throw the drink, and then storm out. I saw the Shannon Doherty character do it on an episode of that Beverly Hills show, and I wanted to see what it was like.
2939. I walk around furniture stores and pretend that I live there with a whole huge group of people. I like to pretend that we were placed there because of some kind of disaster and have no other place to live. I then pick out which bedroom area would be mine and which living room setup I would frequent. I love the idea of living with a whole bunch of strangers in a fancy place. Maybe I'm destined for reality TV. Now that's scary.
3090. I tell people I'm immune to jellyfish stings. When I see one, I'll touch it with my hand and rub it on my chest. Everyone is impressed. Actually, it hurts like a bugger, but I want people to think I am different and special. Like not being stung by a jellyfish is my superpower.
3108. I always knew I would die young. A car crash. A train wreck. Something was going to snuff out my candle early and I would think about it all the time. Now I'm 74. What a waste of effort that was.
3132. When I was a kid, I used to always look at the July 1969 issue of National Geographic. Inside were these photos of topless African tribal women. A boy's gold mine. But there were a bunch of times my mother would walk in my room, see me with the magazine and ask what I was reading. I learned to be on the ready and subtly flip to the next article, which was about geology and rocks. I'd even hold the magazine up and show her the colorful pictures of sliced quartz. For years afterwards, on my birthday and at Christmas time, she would buy me books about geology and rocks. I always felt guilty when I saw those books on my shelf. But still, it was worth it.
3176. Every day that I look my husband in the eyes, the words, "I want to have a baby," rests on my lips unspoken.
3207. When I was 14, my dad took us to TGI Fridays to tell me, my sister, 13, and brother, 7, that he was going to marry another woman. He told us we would have to deal with it because he would choose her over us. It's been 15 years. I think about this conversation quite often. It hurts.
3325. I didn't go to my father's wake cremation ceremony. I know none of my siblings did either. I picture this large windowless room with a casket on display for a few hours. A funeral home host standing there in his black suit, ready to greet the mourners. But nobody showed up. What does that tell you? Are you listening, Dad?